Tonight on Greater Boston, with just days to go until the month-long orange line shutdown and a partial green light shutdown close behind, the Mayor of Medford joins me on how she's trying to get her city ready, along with the president and CEO of the nonprofit A Better City, on what's in store for commuters and will the product justify the pain. Plus, Assistant House Speaker Congresswoman Katherine Clark on the legislation combating climate change, addressing Medicare cost and tax fairness, the violence inciting behavior of her colleagues, and will Nancy Pelosi run for just one more? In T-minus 4 days and 2 hours, the Orange Line will shut down for 30 days, uprooting the commutes and lives of roughly 100,000 people and adding a lot more traffic into the lives of plenty more, while a massive construction effort goes on through, we hope, only September 19th. That's on top of a Green Line station in Somerville that closed just months after it opened and is now being replaced with shuttle buses, and the new branch set to open in Medford, which is now on hold till November. This comes just a few weeks after an Orange Line train caught fire on a bridge over the Mystic River in Somerville, forcing riders to escape out of windows, one jumping into the river. And today officials were blunt about what the next few weeks will hold.
Traffic congestion is expected to be severe. We are urging travelers to evaluate their commute and, if possible, adjust. Look for a route that avoids the shuttle diversion if you must drive in, and shift your travel time to off-peak hours. If possible, avoid the region altogether until the diversion period has concluded.
Avoid the region altogether. I'm joined by the Mayor of Medford, Breanna Lungo-Koehn, who's been trying to get her city ready for Friday, and Rick Dimino, President and CEO of A Better City. Rick and Mayor, good to see you both. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Mayor, I know it's a moot point. Friday is going to happen, but was shutting down the Orange Line the right decision to be made?
I think it's a good thing that the MBTA and MassDOT are working to make the T service safer and replace tracks that are 40 years old. But I do feel that more time and thought should have went into the planning, more communication to mayors, town managers, where cities are going to be affected so greatly.
And by the way, for those who weren't clear what I said a minute, you're getting a double whammy. Not only are you getting no Orange Line, you're getting no extension of the Green Line into Medford. Postponed, and now postponed in November. I don't know you. Are you a betting woman? Would you bet November is actually going to happen?
I sure hope so, but what we've seen with delays to open the Tufts Medford location, it's a possibility that could extend further. But I'm really hoping that we can get our Green Line open.
So Rick, you wanted to split the baby, if I understand. I think your recommendation was if you're going to shut down, just do it through Labor Day. But with people back to work and schools and stuff, reopen after that and do it, weekends or whatever. Did you get a hearing on that proposal, or was that just ignored?
No. Thankfully, I did get a hearing, Jim. And obviously, at the end of the day, just last week, I was called by the governor's office, and they said that they were going to be moving forward the 4-week full shutdown. Now, I really think, and I'm very empathetic and sympathetic to the mayor's concerns, that this could have been done better. It seems really abrupt to be announcing a 4-week shutdown of a major rapid transit line, especially, and Jim, you know this, in the first 2 weeks of September, which is one of the most challenging commuting times in the region and in the city of Boston.
You know, Rick, one of the things that is amazing to me, one of the co-hosts of our morning show rode the Orange Line today, as we just said, saw no signs. Most of the commuters didn't even know, at least a random sample, that there was about to be a shutdown in 4 days. Those that didn't have alternative plans. 4 days out, do we have a clear sense of what's happening with these shuttle buses, what's happening with reconfiguration of streets, all that sort of thing, Rick?
I think the general public is still getting their arms around this whole idea. And to be honest with you, I think there's still a major gap, Jim, in what the public understands about this and the confusion around this. I think they're working very aggressively to try to get the word out. But, you know, as I'm fortunate, and I know the mayor, we get briefed where, we understand the details of this, but I think there's a big gap in terms of the general public's knowledge of all this.
But Mayor, when Rick just said the mayor gets briefed, my understanding is late last week you were complaining that you had several calls set up with the T, each of which was canceled. Is that what actually happened?
That's correct. When I first learned about the shutdown in general, we had a call scheduled for 10 a.m. Prior to, and that got canceled due to IT issues. And then there was one canceled the following Monday. Now it's a little different. We have an 8:30 a.m. call, an 11 a.m. sometimes, a 2 p.m., a 3 p.m. with all on different subjects. So you're trying to kind of hop on ones that fit in your schedule. You have your team members hopping on certain ones. You're all trying to collaborate and figure out, what did you learn at 8:30? Okay, I learned this at 11. Oh, well, you're going to hop on the 2. I'm on a meeting with the mayors at 3:30 to try to, get the GM to talk to us, which was would happen today. So it's really trying to piecemeal some of these meetings. And then some of the frustration comes where you're in a meeting and they're talking about what you mentioned at the beginning of the segment. Please avoid the area. Please use alternate transportation. Please work from home.
So, Mayor, we'll get to your constituents in a second. Do you feel, to use Rick's expression, are you able to wrap your arms around what is going to happen in Medford? Are you there yet or no?
No, a lot of these calls, you don't have clear answers. I've asked repeatedly with 2 other mayors, especially, please allow some of those 160 shuttle buses to be express buses from our individual T stops,
Right.
Because you're going to have crowding on these buses. They're going to go to the next stop, be completely full. Maybe 1 or 2 people get off, if that. But we need express shuttles from, I'll speak for myself, from Medford directly into Boston in order to not create these delays for our residents and T riders that need to get into either medical appointments, school,
Understood.
Colleges and universities are opening, or get into work, essential jobs. Not everybody can stay home.
But you didn't get a commitment. I assume you haven't gotten a commitment on those express buses yet, have you, or have you?
No, we have not.
Rick, I want to read to you a statement. I'm sure you've memorized this already, from the chief of streets in Boston today. Over the coming days, we will undertake an unprecedented effort to reconfigure streets in ways big and small to ensure that the shuttle buses can operate safely and efficiently on Boston streets. I don't mean to laugh. I live in Inman Square in Cambridge. They've been reconfiguring Inman Square for the last 3 years, and they finally did something this Saturday, which seems to have promise. Is this doable? Can streets be reconfigured in predictable, efficient ways in a handful of days?
That's the point. If you got the right planning time and the right community engagement process and the right analysis that suggests where you can do these strategic, interventions on streets to make them operate better for buses. Yeah, but the city started really leaning in on this about 2 weeks ago. So that's no way to run a street system. And it's going to be, unfortunately, it's going to be pretty chaotic. The mayor used that word and then kind of pulled back, but there's going to be, plus we don't have a bus system in the downtown. They're going to be going to Back Bay and they're going to be going to North Station. And then we have this kind of big hole in the donut where lots of stations won't be served. And I think the mayor's point about express bus service is a good one, but we haven't gotten any commitment on that either, Mayor.
So we were the most congested city, if I remember, pre-pandemic. Traffic is up to pre-pandemic levels. Give me a description, Rick, of what you think the next several weeks is going to be like in Boston and Greater Boston.
Well, the last 2 weeks of August, we kind of hopefully will see not as much of a challenge, although it will be. I mean, Jonathan Gulliver, who's our highway administrator, got it right, Jim. 20% slowdown in the region. We got, avoid the region. That was the word of the highway administrator. Even in those last 2 weeks of August, it's going to be challenging, but maybe a slight benefit to the vacationers. But Jim, come the day after Labor Day, There is no time in my history as a transportation official or as a public official where I would have taken an action like this relative to those first 2 weeks of September. You have young school children looking to get to school. You have students getting into universities with streets being closed. You have our region needing access to community colleges and universities. You have jobs and workers from Medford and down the entire corridor from the north, as well as transit-dependent riders on the Orange Line, as well as in Medford, that count on the T because it's their only means of transportation. And you're going to take this on the first 2 weeks of September. That's why we came up with an alternative plan. And one last point, Jim, it would have only added 5 weeks to the schedule, 5 weekends.
But they're not doing it.
They're not doing it. So we're stepping into, let's do our best to help. We're doing that, but I did want to offer an alternative plan. We're in the business of offering those kind of suggestions, but I wish they chose to do it, but we're now trying to.
Rick, very quickly, I know you say the second 2 weeks. Are you convinced that this will be over in 30 days, or are you not? Quickly, if you can.
No.
That's what I figured. Mayor, back to you. So a constituent calls you tomorrow morning and says, I got to get to my kid's doctor, I got to get to school, I got to get to work, add to the list whatever you want. Please tell me what to do. What do you tell him or her?
If it's necessary, we mention the commuter rail options. We direct them to the MBTA's website, which has the rider's guide, which is lengthy, but kind of all we have to go off of. And then we also say, depending on the call, we let them know what we're fighting for and what we're trying to get the T and MassDOT to do to help us alleviate some of the traffic overcrowding, long wait times.
But they also will hopefully be watching you tonight, being candid enough to say that even you don't know what the plan is with 4 days to go, yet they have to figure out, with a little bit of guidance from you, hopefully some from the T, how to survive the next 30 days plus. That's the bottom line, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Hey, Rick, one last thing for you. In light of the fact that we only have 30 seconds left, they rejected your notion to do the 5-weekend deal rather than the couple of weeks come. Do you have any suggestion for them how to mitigate the pain of those 2 weeks, or it just is what it is? Quickly, if you can.
Yeah, I would say they really need to ramp up the commuter rail line, as the mayor was suggesting. Jim, they can run much faster service and much better headways than they're currently planning. And I really hope they'll lean in and do that and partner with Keolis to get that done.
I thank you both. Mayor, I'm glad I'm not you, but it's good to meet you nevertheless. And Rick, thank you as always. Really appreciate it. Thank you both.
Thanks, Jim.
Next up, it was long overdue, and no, I'm not talking about the Mar-a-Lago search, although we will get to that in a couple of minutes. I'm talking about the Inflation Reduction Act, which is finally getting signed into law a year after its original incarnation, the Build Back Better plan that was first introduced. Along the way, some key points like cutting childcare costs and increasing affordable housing fell away, but the final bill on its way to the president made historic strides in combating climate change, controlling drug prices for people on Medicare, and making corporations finally pay a fair share in taxes. Among those celebrating the House floor when the bill passed on Friday was Assistant Speaker of the House and Congresswoman from Massachusetts, Katherine Clark, who joins me now. Congresswoman, good to see you.
Nice to be with you, Jim.
So that is on its way to the president's desk. Last week, he signed the bill about veterans' health care. Gas prices are coming down. Inflation is stabilizing. Are Democrats in private meetings now talking about retaining control of the House or just damage mitigation when it comes to the midterms?
We are excited about these victories for the American people. And every single campaign comes down to who's going to fight for me. And it couldn't be clearer to the American people that it's Democrats, whether we're fighting to reduce their healthcare costs, fighting to make sure that they have reproductive freedoms, investing in infrastructure, in microcomputer chips so that we can build things here in the United States. And what we see on the other side of the aisle is an absolute commitment to obstruction and to fight for one person, and that's Donald Trump.
We'll get to Trump in just a couple of seconds. I forgot the CHIPS and Science bill, by the way. That's also a very important piece. Glad you mentioned it. One bill that didn't make it, though, because of the Senate, was the Women's Health Protection Act, which would guarantee a right to abortion across this country. You and Congresswoman Presley were among demonstrators at the Supreme Court the other day. Two of you were arrested. What's the game plan here? I understand the motivation. What's the game plan to undo the damage the Supreme Court did?
Our game plan is to use every lever, every bully pulpit that we have, because we know what is at stake. We are seeing the criminalization of women who are seeking health care. That is how extreme the GOP position is. That is the extreme effect of the Alito decision in the Dobbs case. And so we are going to continue to put pressure to do whatever we can to pass protective health care, to use executive orders in our agencies, and to make sure that we are spelling it out for the American people that their freedom is on the ballot in the midterms, and it is only the Democrats who are working to ensure that those fundamental choices that we make about when and if to have children remain with our families in accordance with our faith and in accordance with what our doctor says is necessary for us. This overreach into women's lives is such a deprivation of fundamental rights to make those critical decisions on your own without having politicians in that doctor's office with you. And we are going to do everything we can to keep drawing attention to this and using every way possible to protect women's access to health care.
You know, Katherine Clark, we just made a list of the things you talked about, all of which are factually accurate. Forget the opinion, but factually accurate. Where the Democratic Party is on abortion, which is where 2/3 of America is. Climate change, reducing the cost of drugs for older people on Medicare. I can go down the list. In light of the fact that polls still suggest, despite all this, that the Republicans will control the House come January, the conclusion one has to reach, unless you just say history is history, is the Democrats are rotten at messaging, getting better in the last few months at passing laws, rotten at messaging. That's a pretty accurate statement, is it not?
No, I don't think it is. Listen, one of the powers the GOP has is they're absolutely shameless. So they will say whatever with no regard to consequence or to tethering to fact or science, and they repeat it. And it is easy to repeat short talking points that have nothing to do with the reality that families are facing. What they're terrible at and what Democrats excel at is actually doing something to help fix some of these problems. So whether, and I think a great example of voters understanding this is looking at what just happened in Kansas. Trying to put on a primary ballot where there were only Republicans in contested votes and contested races, a change to their constitution so that they too could restrict abortion care in their state was soundly defeated. And not just where one big and more Democratic areas, but the vote totals were really not what people expected in rural and suburban parts of Kansas as well. I think that we underestimate that the American people are watching. They watched what happened and on January 6th. They watched those January 6th committee hearings. They are watching that Republicans are voting to criminalize healthcare. They are voting against environmental investments so that we can help people address these lethal effects of climate change. And they're doing nothing to create great paying jobs for people. And On the gun violence, they won't even vote for an Amber Alert that would alert you of an active shooter in your community. That is how extreme they are. And I think that the American people are realizing that this is really what is on the ballot. Are we going to have a democracy? Are we going to have a Congress that fights for you and your family, or are we not?
Well, you know, speaking of shameless, everybody watching knows about the search of Mar-a-Lago, and I assume most know what the primary Republican response has been. I want to play some sound from three of your colleagues, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and Elise Stefanik. Here they are.
We now know that there was an FBI informant at Mar-a-Lago. Who is that, and how many other FBI informants are around President Trump on a daily basis? These are the real enemies.
You guys, I'm pissed. We are a nation of law and order, and this raid by the FBI on President Trump's home is totally un-American. This is Gestapo crap, and it will not stand.
President Donald Trump is Joe Biden's most likeliest political opponent in 2024. The FBI raid of President Trump is a complete abuse and overreach of its authority.
Most likeliest. Well, obviously they're not concerned about spawning violence. We know what happened in Cincinnati when the guy tried to go after the FBI, was ultimately killed. We know what his Truth Social postings were about killing the FBI if you were to go to Florida to follow up on Mar-a-Lago. What's your reaction to this grotesquely irresponsible rhetoric from people who have the same job you do?
It is grotesquely irresponsible, and it is so dangerous. To hear Lauren Boebert in that quote talking about law and order, this was a legal search warrant signed off by a federal judge, and they are just totally making up a pack of lies about what this is, instead of saying, let's wait and see. Let's see what this investigation turns into. And it is planting very real seeds of violence that we've already seen play out. One life has already been lost. We've had other armed people showing up at FBI headquarters. And I can tell you that the threat level against law enforcement, against the federal judge who signed that search warrant, against politicians, is all on the rise. This is a very dangerous game they are playing. And it is the only thing they have to sell at the midterms, because they have been steadfast in obstructing any sort of legislation that can actually help the American people as they continue to face rising costs and a pandemic-driven economy that has been a tough one. But since they've done nothing on that side, they are going back to their old playbook of actually instigating civil war, of actually trying to call people to believe that all of this is made up and rigged, just the same playbook from the 2020 elections. And it is a very, very dangerous game that they are playing.
Speaking of instigating civil war or something like it, you're a lawyer. Do you think, based on the January 6th hearings your colleagues have held in the House that'll resume in September, that they've demonstrated that Donald Trump has committed crimes?
I think that they have put forward a lot of evidence that Donald Trump knew. He was told repeatedly that this election was sound and that he had lost fair and square. And he continued to not only try and influence those secretaries of states that he called to just find him 11,000 votes, but he also knew what he was doing when he brought a mob to the Capitol and then turned them on Mike Pence, his own vice president.
Did he commit crimes in that behavior, with that behavior?
I think that there is potential for crimes. There's also evidence that I have not seen, and we are going to let the truth play out. The committee is not done with its investigation. They are putting together their final report, but it is chilling what they have uncovered and the presentation that they have made about the actions of Donald Trump on January 6th and the months leading up to it.
Congresswoman, you're very close to the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and 4 years ago she pledged she would not run for another term as leader of the Democrats after this year. She says she's running for re-election in San Francisco, has refused to say whether she is running for the leadership position again. Is she?
You know, Nancy Pelosi, we are so fortunate to have her. And I know that her focus is on the midterm election. She is running for re-election. She will be our speaker into November. And until she says that she is not running, you know, we are just lucky to have her leadership.
Would you vote for her again if she chose to break her pledge and ran for speaker or minority leader again? Would you vote for her?
I would. I would. I think she's been an incredible leader for the Democrats.
Last question. Back home, after spending all this time in Washington, I just spoke to the mayor of a city in your district, the mayor of Medford, talking about, I know you can guess what, the orange line, the green line. What's your quick take on what the people of your district and beyond are about to endure come Friday?
You know, this is horrendous. It's really beyond an inconvenience. And the MBTA is broken. And I am glad that we are having a governor's race. I support Maura Healey, who really understands what's at stake for communities in my district, like Medford. Many of my communities are on the orange line and rely on it for employees, for getting to work themselves. And this is a system that needs a complete overhaul. And I think that Maura Healey is going to be the person to do it.
Was Baker right to shut it down for a month?
You know, I don't know what the options are when we are in a situation where the MBTA has to decide between fundamental safety and actually running their cars. So, you know, those decisions, I trust they made the one that was the safest, but how did we get here? This has been nothing sudden. It has been years of neglect, and we have to have someone in the governor's office who is going to pay attention to this and make real progress. This is really unacceptable that in Massachusetts, this is how we solve our public transportation problems, is by shutting lines down for weeks at a time.
Katherine Clark, it's good to see you. Good luck. Be well.
Thank you.
That's it for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget Ukraine.